and it is my honor to be the President and CEO of the Ottawa Board of Trade. We really appreciate the good work of all of our members and all of the businesses of the business community during this very special time in the history of our entire world, as we're dealing with a situation that has forced us to rethink our businesses, which is what we're going to be talking about today, and really reimagine our entire communities, our own lifestyles, and our own resilience. So we're so thrilled to be here today with our friends Rob, Trevor, and Eric from Rhapsody Strategies, and I'm going to introduce them a little bit later. But I want to start by saying thank you to everyone who's continued to support this webinar series. It's our way of continuing to support our business community by bringing you information, inspiration, and new ideas and opportunities to connect during this very interesting time where we are most often seeing each other virtually as opposed to shaking hands one-on-one. And so we're thrilled for all of you to be here, because we really believe it's important to stay connected, to be sharing ideas with each other as we go through this. It's only made possible through the generosity of our sponsors, and I'd like to say thank you today to Enbridge, to Ottawa Citizen, and of course to our presenting sponsor, Rhapsody Strategies. I'd just like to give you a little bit of an update of the Board of Trade before we get started. We continue, as we have been as we do always, but specifically these last few weeks at a very high level, working with our partners at the Ontario and the Canadian Chamber of Commerce to advocate for continued support of the business community as we mitigate the countermeasures for COVID-19, specifically looking at the access and implementation of programs that have been rolled out, and also looking at the reopening that we are facing now and the recovery of our economy as we look to thrive in this new environment. You would have seen last week that the city has rolled out, in partnership with the Ottawa Public Health, the toolkits that we are using to support businesses in their reopening, and really want to encourage all of you to step up as leaders to ensure that you're using masks wherever possible and encouraging others to do so, and maintaining that 2 meters physical distancing. Those are the things that the public health has asked us to do in order to protect our workforce and our customers, but quite frankly, from an economic health point of view, it's what we need to do for our economy as we continue to move forward. So ask each of you to continue to do that, to demonstrate leadership in that way and encourage others to do so. And we will continue to look for resources to help businesses safely reopen. And the main thing we want to be able to do is to, as business leaders, to demonstrate our care and concern for our customers, for our workforce as we get back to work, and build that business, customer, and workforce confidence. You may have seen already today that we have an exciting new program launching with some of the chambers across Canada, including the Canadian Chamber and Facebook, a new grant program for small businesses, up to $5,000 in cash and ads to help mitigate some of the costs. So we really encourage you to share, spread the word, so that our Ottawa businesses are getting their fair share of that Canadian-wide granting program. So that's an exciting one coming up. And then I also want to encourage you, we've been promoting it in our newsletters. The Canadian Business Resilience Network is an initiative that's all-encompassing to support our business communities, that's being led by the Canadian Chamber in partnership with several other national associations, and they've announced a bit of a concierge service, if you will, for our businesses. So if you have specific questions, they have experts on standby to assist you with those. So with that, and without further ado, I want to introduce these three gentlemen, and I have these bios that really share each of their passions for the work that they do. So I don't think I can do it justice. So what I might suggest is that I might ask each of them to do a short introduction of themselves and how they came together to Rhapsody Strategies. I've heard the story, and it's a fascinating story. So I want to say welcome today to the principals of Rhapsody Strategies. And as I said, this company is a company built on integrity and encouraging businesses and individuals to reach for the top, to be all they were meant to be, meant for more. I think is the phrase that I'm so have loved and working with these guys. And they have been tremendous supporters of the business community and of the Ottawa Board of Trade and the Chamber of Commerce movement for many years. So welcome today to the principals, Rob Dale, to Eric Deschamps, and to Trevor Munven. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Sue-Ling. I'm a little nervous when you're asking us to be the ones to actually do that rather than reading the transcript. Let me just say, and I'm going to invite maybe Trevor can lead just a quick little introduction into the story of Rhapsody for a brief moment at the opening here. But let me just say, again, we're big fans of yours, Sue-Ling. We're big fans of the Ottawa Board of Trade. During this season, one of the things that we have seen so many communities do is the emphasis on local. And it's not just buying local, but it's also support local and support one another locally. And I think organizations like the Ottawa Board of Trade, you really, the opportunity to shine and to demonstrate the value of an organization like this, there's no other better season to do that than when every leader, not just some leaders, every leader is facing crisis, to be able to come on board and to do that, and for us to be able to understand that we're not alone in all of this. Let me just say this, and before I head over to Trev, just to quickly just introduce the three of us and how Rhapsody, what it's about. We really want this to be a conversation today. We intentionally designed it in such a way that this is not about the three of us talking. You'll get very tired of just listening to us talk. We want this to be an opportunity for you to bring some input. Strongly encourage you to, as much as you can, use the chat feature if you've got comments or questions, to throw them in there, or even just kind of wave your hand, unmute your mic, and one of us will notice that the mic's been unmuted, and we'll assume that means you want to jump in when you have a chance. But we really do want to have a conversation around that. So I'm going to introduce the topic and kind of frame it for us in just a minute, but maybe before we do that, because there may be many on the call here that aren't as really familiar with Rhapsody, I'll just turn it over to Trevor to just tell a little of that story.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Celine. Thanks, Lynn, as well, for all your support getting us ready for all of this. I thought you were going to get us to introduce ourselves. I was going to suggest we introduce each other. Like, I'll introduce Rob, Rob will introduce Eric. This will work. My name's Trevor Munven. It would have been about 5.5, almost 6 years ago, when Eric and I were leading two separate organizations. I was running Social Catalyst at the time. Eric was running Breakthrough Coach. We were clients of one another. We knew each other well. We had become friends. We were sharing space as well. Rob was a key element of the team at Breakthrough Coach with Eric. They were building this company as we went together. And I sent Eric a meeting request, and it was for Friday afternoon at 1 o'clock. And the title was Dangerous Conversation. That was it. So I don't know if you would go to a meeting if that was the title or not, but Eric did. And we started what became the conversation that brought our two organizations together to form Rhapsody. And that notion of a dangerous conversation is a core value for us to this day. And a dangerous conversation isn't dangerous to people. And in fact, it happens when the relationships are safe, when trust is very, very high. But I'll tell you, it's dangerous to status quo. You know, if you start a dangerous conversation, something is about to change. And you don't always know what. Right, that's the exploration. I think that's the dangerous part. It's not a fait accompli, but it's a moment where you start to put new issues kind of on the line and in front of you. And I think in some ways we're all in a bit of a dangerous situation right now. You know, it's this is a context where no one really knows what's about to happen, but things are changing. And so I think that really sets the groundwork for what's been an amazing experience for, I think, all three of us. who together form the leadership team for the organization. We share the leadership of the organization, which is it's a really dynamic approach. It requires a lot of structure and care in terms of how we work together, how we communicate. We have an amazing team who are very, very strong. We've been very blessed with a great deal of success. For us to be able to share in the context of all of this and to help leaders and to help organizations wherever they are, it has been a real pleasure and a real joy for us. So maybe that's probably enough by way of background about us.
Yeah, that's great. And I love that you mentioned about the dangerous conversations and the dangerous times that we're in. This is a season for dangerous conversations when it comes to leadership style, when it comes to the business, when it comes to employees, staffing, when it comes to even the clients. And so when we were first approached about doing a webinar and we had this conversation, we thought, well, what would be our topic? We really wanted to keep it as, in many ways, open-ended as we could, with the notion of rethinking your business or rethinking your organization. And the reason for that is because that in itself opens up the opportunity to all kinds of dangerous conversations. And again, dangerous to the status quo. That a lot of business owners right now, a lot of organizational leaders are looking at, and they're asking themselves questions around, they're rethinking maybe how they do what they do. They're rethinking, is there a better way? They're rethinking why they do what they do, and is that why still relevant? Or rethinking who is on the journey with them, and are those people still the right people? Do they fit? There's so many different directions that we can go when we start talking about rethinking our businesses and our organizations. And that's what we wanted to talk about today. Is our hope and our goal out of today is to perhaps learn from one another about some things we need to be thinking about, but to provide you and to have you to be able to take away a couple of maybe aha moments or nuggets that you can then take and apply to your own situation around, are there some things that you need to be rethinking as you prepare to reopen? Some of you are open, and as the organization, what does things look like? Eric, maybe, and so what I would encourage you to do is, I'd love to just see, even in the chat window, to just maybe populate in that, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you when you think about, when you see a title, Rethinking Your Business, or again, if you're an organizational leader, Rethinking Your Organization, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you? And is there some pivots? Are there some things that you've already started to do to rethink that? And I'd love to see some of the comments in the chat window around that. Eric, maybe I'll have you jump in. I know that the three of us certainly are spending a lot of time having conversations with all kinds of different business owners, with all kinds of different organizational leaders, executives. What are some of the things you're hearing around those conversations that would fit into this notion of rethinking your business?
Well, on the notion of dangerous conversations, what's really interesting is that often you have to be ready. You have to be ready to face that issue, ask the tough questions, perhaps let go of things that have been part of the normal for you for a very long time. And so these types of conversations, we're having them with leaders all the time. Think of everything from the Industrial Revolution to Blockbuster video giving way to Netflix and streaming online, to the invention of the iPhone, to Uber coming to Ottawa and disrupting the taxi industry. Disruption in business is the norm, right? It happens all the time. There are cycles, whether it's new innovation or new technology or changes to our culture and to the way that we live and the way that we do business, that create these massive waves of change. And one theorist calls it creative destruction, the theory of creative destruction, that in the destruction of the old, something new emerges. And yet in the destruction process, it can be very, very painful and very, very difficult. This is normal in day-to-day business, day-to-day affairs. What's unique right now is that everyone everywhere is facing the same crisis at the same time. And the pandemic is as revolutionizing, is impacting just about every industry out there is being touched by this. And all of your businesses, I'm sure, have been touched in some way. Some of the conversations I'm having with some of my clients, we've seen some organizations that are seeing a massive boom, an explosion of their business in a positive way because of this. For most, it's had a negative impact, at least in the short term, in terms of revenue and having to let go of staff, perhaps, to manage that change. All of us are being impacted in some way. And we're all faced with the reality that now we have to have the dangerous conversation. It's no longer left to choice. It's no longer left to as something I should do or could do, or maybe I'll do in the future. We're all being forced to ask ourselves very hard questions about our leadership, about our teams, about the nature of our business and how we deliver our product and service, and how that's going to shift given the new context that we're in. And so a lot of the leaders that we're talking to, of course, initially, we spent the first several weeks of this pandemic in a lot of crisis-based conversations with leaders. Crisis-based conversations are quite the norm for us. We're helping leaders face crisis all the time. But again, the magnitude of crisis right now and organizations that are in crisis and leaders that are in crisis, it's been pretty significant. And we'll introduce a model in a moment that I think will be helpful to you to frame how we view managing change in crisis and how we've been helping our leaders. But what I'm hearing a lot of leaders say, Rob, and everybody on the call, is, I hadn't realized how complacent I had become in some areas of my business. I had realized, I've been meaning to make some changes. I've been wanting to make some changes. And so the plus side of all of this, right, is that this is an incredible time. It's probably a time of unparalleled opportunity for massive transformation at the leadership level, at our teams, of our organizations. There's no greater opportunity. And if I can say anything, if you don't remember anything else I say today, the opportunity mindset is what is so crucial as a leader right now. Yes, we're facing crisis. Yes, we're facing challenge. Yes, we're facing, in many cases, tremendous hardship and tremendous pressure in the decisions that we're making. But if we approach it with an opportunity mindset, get to see the way forward and create the new future, create the new reality in our given context.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And, there's some great comments. Thank you, everyone that's putting some comments in there. And I do want us, we're going to dive into a couple of those and even maybe invite some people to elaborate a little bit on some of the comments that are made. Before we jump in on that, though, Trev, you made a comment. You and I were having a conversation earlier, and you made the statement that there's massive permission to change anything we want. To Eric's point, that this is a season where there's so much that is happening. And then now we're kind of in a season where, whether it's human resources, and again, I'm looking at a number of the different revising, delivery, there's so many things that people are, when we rethink our business, there is this incredible, when you made that statement to me, what do you mean by that? Maybe elaborate a little bit on the notion of we have incredible permission right now to do the changes.
Yeah, this permission piece is kind of interesting right now because, and even when we were thinking about the name of this session, Rethinking Your Business, I go, okay, that's good. Whenever you put re in front of something, it needs to do it again, right? So let's go back again and think about our business. The other alternative for me would actually be reacting your business, but it doesn't sound as good because thinking isn't sufficient here. It's right. The thinking and the action. They have to come together, but you need to get your thinking straight first. And so that brings us to this permission piece, Rob, which is, frankly, right now, you can just about do almost anything you need to and go and end the sentence because of COVID. And people go, oh yeah, I get it. Sorry, I'm afraid we can't deliver with our regular 24-hour turnaround because of COVID. Everybody goes, oh, okay, I totally get it. There's a space here where there is a permission that exists for us to make choices that we might not normally give ourselves permission to make. And this is the interesting thing. So for those of you who lead organizations, there's times where you want to introduce change, and there's all kinds of resistance, whether it's from clients or team or process or whatever that is. Right now, most of that resistance is gone. People are saying, okay, this is what we have to do. So if this is what we need to do right now, then let's do it. So one of the great questions we'd encourage each of you to think about is, what do you wish you could be doing in your business, or what have you been wishing you could do in your organization, business or otherwise? It doesn't make a difference, because now is a great time to do it. And I was with a client, and it was, they had I thought it was the greatest response to that question. I said, if you could get rid of anything that's just bugging you, like it just bugs you in the business, what would it be? They said, we don't want to take cash anymore. And it was such a simple example, but for that, I said, great, then you say we don't take cash anymore. And just, right. And they said, well, what do we tell people when they say, but I've always taken cash? I said, because of COVID, like we don't want to touch things, so it's all touchless. And they're like, oh my God, you're right. Because it's a small element of their business, but it's actually quite labor intensive to manage it. And they wanted that gone. And it was such a tiny example. You could also, though, look much more broadly in terms of saying, what else could we do in this instance? And, we had a speaker in one of our conversations talk about how he was working with a CIO of a massive organization who had spent 2 years fighting with the legal department about electronic signatures. And honestly, he was losing. He was losing this battle for 2 years. And suddenly, miraculously, in 5 days, not only did they agree, but it was implemented. Because all of a sudden there was a willingness and a necessity for a shift in behavior and opportunity to say, we can do this differently. For all the organizations who said, no, working from home isn't going to work, right? Sorry, going to need to have you at the, suddenly they've all really figured out quickly how to, get it mostly right. I wouldn't say everyone's nailed it here, that's for sure. There's a long way to go, but we figured out mechanics in areas where before these things weren't even on the table. And so we really encourage you to look hard at your business to say, where can we give ourselves permission to think differently and act differently than we've ever done it before? And that is part of the opportunity that's here.
Yeah, it's so much it is. I'm looking through the comments. Christine, I love the pandemic pivot. It almost sounds like that's a new dance craze or something, the pandemic pivot. But it really is that opportunity, and we have permission to do that pivot. Whereas in the past, to Trevor's point, there would take an enormous amount of communication and oftentimes a lot of space in order to make a shift in a business. Suddenly you can do it in a very quick, very fast pace. As a result of the pandemic pivot, and so I think that's awesome. We're looking at just some of the comments. There's certainly some talk. A few people have talked about whether it's human resources or how they communicate with parents, and I'm seeing again some great stuff coming out of this around the going back. We're seeing people's core coming out of that. Cecilia made reference of that, and I'm certainly seeing that a lot as well. Eric, for a lot of businesses and a lot of organizations, you can almost summarize what they need to look, the areas they need to explore, the questions they need to ask into 2 or 3 different areas. And we talk about it a little bit. We have a bit of information on our website about, that there's kind of different areas that you need to focus in on. Maybe could you walk us through a little bit of that and how this aligns to kind of the different pieces we need to be thinking about?
Well, I think it really does come down to obviously there's your basic business model. You need to look at your business model and ask yourself some tough questions about how viable it is moving forward and what changes need to be made so that you can continue to offer your product or service, or again, make some significant changes in the way that you offer that product or service. I'd be curious to know how many of you pre-COVID were regular Zoom users for business or video conferencing, right? For a lot of folks, this is brand new, and it meant a huge adjustment of, right? And networking now is a little odd, right? We get on a call and we all look at each other in awkward silence, and we're looking at ourselves in the camera. And we didn't have those issues before. But a simple change like that, we have to look, what are the changes we need to make, obviously, so that our business can keep going. But there are 3 key areas that I think this is, and I mentioned them already, that I believe are where the massive opportunity for transformation lies. And that is, first of all, in you as a leader, right? Your leadership style, your leadership acumen. How do you need to grow and evolve in all of this? Talk about a massive opportunity. It's been said, and we use this all the time in our coaching work and our consulting work, that oftentimes until the pain of staying the same isn't greater than the pain required to change, people aren't motivated to change. And this is why we often make promises to ourselves, especially come December every year, looking forward to the next year. How many of you have made resolutions that you never stuck to, right? It's because there's pain required in changing your current reality. And that discomfort, that pain, that resistance can often keep us stuck, right? In a current way of living, of being, of existing, even though we don't want that. We may want something different, but it's the devil I know versus the devil I don't. So we tend to stay put in a certain mode of thinking, behaving, and being. Right now, again, there's this change is being forced on us. I have yet to find a business leader or talk to a business leader that had a pandemic in their 2020 business plan, right? No one saw this coming, right? We couldn't have anticipated it. We couldn't have anticipated the magnitude of this and how it's impacting literally every nation in the world and economies in a massive way. We've used the illustration of, I think when this first started to emerge, people thought it was going to be like a blizzard. You know, Canadians are very accustomed to blizzards and we're pretty hardy stock. Blizzard, you know it's coming, you prep for it, you hunker down for 2 or 3 days, you do the work, you shovel the driveway a few times, and you get back to life as normal. This is no blizzard, right? This is an entire season. It's like we've re-entered into a business organizational winter. Right, where we have to react and respond differently and act and plan differently, and many are saying this is going to lead to a mini ice age, economically speaking. Right, we're thinking, you know, at the very least, we're looking at a recession, and the recession of 2008 is probably going to look like a walk in the park compared to this one, because again, the magnitude of this thing and how it's impacting us in such a significant way. So your opportunity to redefine yourself as a leader in all of this. There's nothing like pain. There's nothing like discomfort. There's nothing like crisis to force things that perhaps we've been wanting to do, but for one reason or another, we just haven't done them. The other area that we need to look at is our teams, our immediate teams. And in many organizations, I'd be curious how many, and perhaps you can put it in the chat if you feel comfortable doing so, how many organizations have had to do layoffs, or at least temporary layoffs or permanent layoffs as a result of this thing. There's a lot of organizations that have had to do that just to survive this current climate, especially during this lockdown phase. Well, the reality is organizations are having to run right now with fewer hands on, right? We've got fewer people doing all the work. And as we head into a recession, there's a big chance that companies aren't going to be hiring all the people they had to let go, hiring them back. So they're going to have to be operating for some time with perhaps a leaner staff than they're used to. So upgrading your team, making sure they've got what they need, right? Focusing on making sure they're bringing their A game. You know, you need to bring your A game and they need to bring their A game. The other key area I'd be having challenge every leader to look at is their systems and upgrading the way that you operate. Now is the time, if like never before, especially if you're in a season where perhaps your client load has been reduced because of the current situation. Most are reporting a drop in business, a drop in revenues, which means a drop in client activity. Others are, like I said, are on the other end of the spectrum and are seeing their business explode. I've got a client who's in the security guard industry, and he just can't keep up, right? Another great local business that best way to describe it is imagine Uber for contractors, right? They go to the store and they get the stuff for the contractors and deliver it right on site. They're exploding, right? Because it's hard to get in the stores to get what they need to continue the construction work. So some are reporting that, but most are reporting this drop in business. Reduction of your client load, now is the perfect opportunity to take a hard look at your systems, your operations, and find efficiencies, find better ways of doing it. Look at ways to automate simple day-to-day tasks in your business that often required human hands to do. Right? I know of one organization that was able to, they had to lay off some staff, and within a few weeks, they were able to automate most of those functions, which means that they're going to be able to continue to operate in a leaner fashion and yet get all the work done. Right? So you need to upgrade yourself, upgrade your team, upgrade your systems. It really comes down to that. There's a lot more to it than that, but in a simplistic way, those are three key areas that I think everybody should be looking at.
Yeah, I think they cover so much when you've got those specific places to dive into and focus on. And, you know, as I'm looking again, as I wanted to stay on top of the comments, I love the fact that I'm kind of hosting our team on this call, because I don't have to, you know, I'm putting the two of them on the spot rather than the other way around where they've got to kind of just respond. And I want to have
Rob's tired of carrying us. He's been carrying us all this time. He's saying, all right, you guys, get to work.
Well, you said it. Trev, let me, I really do, I love what Cecilia wrote around that notion of, again, the silver lining, the idea that people's core. We're seeing people's core, that people are becoming more authentic in their business. This is a phenomenal time for us to really get back to what really makes us as a business and as an organization, and then letting that be expressed not only as, well, in many different ways. So I'd like to kind of, again, put you on the spot on how do you see that authenticity, that core message playing itself out in how you handle the three areas that that Eric just spoke about, how that fits into whether it's your, how you do your systems, how you treat your people, how you lead your organizations, how you communicate to clients, how you work with, even in some cases, competitors and others in the community. Just unpack that a little bit for him.
Yeah, I mean, how you do things right now is as important as what you do. All right. And, Eric was mentioning Schumpeter and the creative destruction before. And what's interesting about that is in this process of creative destruction where organizations rise and fall, right? Things have beginnings and endings. Things change over time. In the moment of transformation, when that stuff is happening, the question is, which part are you hanging on to? Are you hanging on to the destruction part or the new part? Right? The creative part where the opportunity lies. Because there are a lot of organizations, a lot of leaders are hanging on desperately trying to protect something that they need to be transforming instead. They need to be leading it somewhere else and taking it somewhere else. And Eric just described it beautifully around looking at your own leadership and what you're doing, then looking at your team, and then do you actually have the systems in play to support that as you go through? The heart of all of that flows out of like, who are you? Right? It's this core question of mission. Who are you? In these moments, right? We've also called this the great reveal, because it's showing us everything. It's showing us who can navigate these changes and who can't. It's showing us who's strong and who's not. There's surprises to it. There's massive organizations disappearing right now, right? What was that last one? Reitman's I was just reading about, Cirque du Soleil, all kinds of organizations are facing, that organizations whose leadership I admire and who are, and who have been major players in their space are suddenly struggling. And so getting really clear on who you are in the reveal is important. And so as a leader, you need to be able to say, what's being revealed to me about myself, about my leadership, about my systems, but also about what's the essence of what we do, right? At the end of the day, what is the core and the essence? Really clear in the heart of your organization and what you're there to do, and to look at it and to re-examine it. And to ask new questions, different kinds of questions. You may say, well, I'm in this business. You go, that's great. That's what you do. But that's not the same as the mission, right? That's not the heart of what defines you. And the thing is, once you go through that exercise to say, who are we really? Then it requires what I would refer to as courageous focus, which is stop doing everything that's not that. And we get really attached to systems and processes that are running, we've been doing it and all these things, but there's a point where you need to say, who are we really? Because there is no wiggle room right now, right? It's about really getting clear on that. And the truth is, that's good in any context. The challenge is in any other context, when things are good, it's hard to have the courage and the discipline to actually stop doing some things in order to really double down on the things that you do need to do. So I'd say that's one facet that works with this notion around kind of both personal and team leadership that Eric described, as well as the systems piece to say, what can we automate? And again, looking at all your systems, saying, how can we simplify them? How can we automate them? And let's not have systems for things that don't matter. Let's just get rid of things that don't matter. I would say that the fourth element, if I can call it that, is around relationships and rethinking our relationships. So I would encourage you to think about, what is the nature of the relationship I have with my team, with my clients, with my suppliers, right? When we look at all of those, there's some organizations say, listen, the relationship, the way we've structured our relationship with our team needs to change. And some have said, I'm afraid we need to let some people go. Some have said we need to redefine this. Some have said we've got to find new ways to combine roles, eliminate roles, change things, but to look at that again. But it is time for, some really strong and clear conversations about what is the relationship in our team and how does that work and is it working? Because there's no extra space here right now. The other part is around clients. What's our relationship with our clients, right? When we laid out our plan, our focus was, right now was not about branding, it was about bonding. right? Let's connect more deeply than ever
Right.
before. So focus on bonding, not branding. We've been doing, not twice a week like the Ottawa Board of Trade, but on a regular basis, we've been doing our own calls as well, as we've tried to bring to bear the resources we have, our thoughts, our relationships, the thing we're learning, and share them as quickly as possible to get them out of there, simply as a mechanism to say, this is our commitment, this is our way to continue to give, to share our time. We're going to continue to do that as organizations navigate their way through this, because this is the point in time to just, like, it's the moment of truth right now. And this is the moment to be there for your clients, to help them, to connect with them, to show them what you truly stand for. If we go back to the great reveal, it's revealing your values, right? You're seeing values all over the place now, right? And you can see who's been talking their values and who's actually living them, right? And it's beautiful. When you see organizations and leaders who are living their values, those are all the stories that move us. And I think those are the ones that we want to aspire to. And then the last element around relationship there is really your supply chain. And I think we've all realized, it's a little more brittle than maybe we thought it was. It's been interrupted all over the place. And now is a time where we need to start to come together and say, okay, we're seeing more self-sufficiency kick in, and we're seeing people focus more locally, saying, you know what, let's make this more local. I've got stronger relationships. I can manage this, where it's just something is across the planet. You go, well, I don't know, I can't do much there. So I think that's the other part, is we're seeing that happen. I think in all of this, encouraging people to keep deciding and then acting. Decide, act, and then adjust. Don't stop. Right? If you stop right now, this thing will just plow right over us, right? It will just, there's no room for it. It's not a wait and see moment. It's the act and see moment. I guess it doesn't have the same ring to it, though. I'll have to work on that. It's the act and see moment, to say something has got to, we need to be moving. We need to be actively leading our organizations and changing our actions. What's not, it won't all work. That's okay. That's not a failure. The failure will be staying where you are and not moving right now.
Yeah, that's so good. Thank you for unpacking that a little bit more, Trev. So we've got about 15 minutes left in the call, and I really want to hear from some of you. There's been some phenomenal comments that have been made in the chat window, but I'd like to open up and just make that availability. I want to encourage, if you've got a question or a comment that you'd like to share, and just to include your the thoughts on the call, I really want to welcome that. Do want to encourage you to keep the topic focused on the notion of rethinking your business. I appreciate that we can kind of dive into the weeds on specific things that maybe are not necessarily the scope of the call that we've got here today. So want to just kind of mention that, but I'd love to hear from a couple of you. Questions you've got, certainly around some of you have shared some of the areas that you're kind of looking at. If you've got specific questions around some of those areas, or even just some thoughts, there's been, like I say, some great comments. Just invite you just to kind of wave, let me see your hand, or just you can just jump right in if you've got a comment, and love to hear from a couple of you.
Not all at once.
Yeah, just one at a time, please. Milan.
Yeah, this is a great time to help people, clients. Anyway, I wrote a book about this. It's how to put the people together. I've helped lawyers. I've helped people in various businesses get business. There's a lot of focus on our own firms, and I certainly do that. But when somebody says, "Hey, I need a lawyer," "Hey, Denis," "Hey, this person," "Hey, that person," "Oh, I need car tires," "I need windows," "I need doors." This is a great opportunity to help your clients generate revenue. So much,
right.
I've been on so many podcasts. There's a lot of great information. I don't think there's enough of how can you help people? If anything that we get out of this, my view is hopefully people are more kinder. Get off of their own gravy train, acting like they're mightier than thou. Take a moment and say, "Hey, wait a minute." And I know you guys, we work together, and you guys are, help me as well. And I look around, when, somebody says like Jeremy, HB Pools, My wife's buddy says, hey, I want to open up a pool. Boom, Jeremy, get on this. Or my buddy calls me, says, my pool motor broke. Jeremy, here, call Nick. He needs a pool motor. Let's go to that level because we all need it.
Yeah, and and I think that's great. Certainly when it comes to how you're referring and supporting one another, it goes to a deeper question, and it's an interesting one. And maybe I'll throw this out to the guys as well around how you help. So here's what I see. A lot of businesses have a struggle right now navigating through the idea of they're almost in a way giving away shit and almost devaluing their service because they're giving away so much stuff because they don't want to sell during the time of a pandemic, and they want to come across as really caring and supportive. And there is a balance around the idea of how you do that. I won't put one of you on the spot. I'll just open up to both of you guys and how you do that. What is the right answer? What is the right level of how you support people, demonstrate that you do care about your clients, whether those are business to business or business to consumer, you care about them. At the same time, it's a business you're running. And
right.
You need to be able to survive. And so we're seeing people giving discounts. Now we're seeing how some people are actually, giving a COVID-19 surcharge. What's the balance there?
Right. Well, I think the notion of community and supporting each other, I think that is one of the things that we're seeing a lot more of. I think, again, in times of extreme pressure, we tend to be more cognizant of the people around us and reach out more. And if there's anything leaders need to be very aware of right now, especially if you're feeling the pinch of being at the head of your business and trying to make these decisions, is don't try to do that alone. Right. There is a lot of support out there. There is a lot of networks that are emerging, organizations that are emerging, conversations that are being had in every industry. And I see Amanda's comment about, some industries making a pivot. It's not so easy, right? It's not easy they can't go online, or it's difficult to go online, or near impossible for them to do some of the things that maybe in some of our businesses we've been able to do. And again, reaching out to the community of people that are sharing that similar struggle. In every industry, there are the futurists, there are the trendsetters, there are the ones that are breaking new grounds, and they're out there to be found. But we got to go find them, and we got to go pay very close attention to what they're doing, not necessarily to just copy and paste that into our business, but to learn the valuable lessons that they're learning and perhaps make some important changes. When it comes to giving, I think giving and serving, it's always the right time to give and serve. But there's an old adage of the fruit tree. It's okay to give away the fruit, but careful you don't give away the tree, because you won't have any fruit left to give. So in your giving, in your serving, in the notion of being available to your community, remember, it is a business after all, and you have to manage your giving in such a way that you don't deplete yourself or stretch yourself so thin that at the end of the day, you don't have a business left when this is all said and done, or that you struggle needlessly. Trev, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think when we give, we should be deliberate about our giving. And I think when people are not deliberate about their giving, it's very difficult to know, do I say yes or no here? Right. So the choosing how you give and doing that as an expression of your values, I think is a great model to think about. Don't give what you don't have. We know a lot of people do that in terms of ongoing support and emotional support and all kinds of things for others as well. But give what you can, and be honest with yourself about what that looks like. Part of what I like out of all of this as well is there's kind of a humanness reemerging in so many things as well. And Milan, you talked about it in terms of how we support each other, things we can do, we reach out for others, all of that, and it goes to that relationship piece, right? So I love in Zoom calls when people's dogs walk by or their kid wants to come and sit next to them and all of that. Like, I just love it because we're being real about who we are, right? Often there's the language of we must be professional and professionalism. I think when that language first started, it means let's act with integrity and let's do our work well. And over time, it's almost become a bit of a straitjacket in terms of we must not reveal these things and we must hide those things and we must look like this. the thing is, it's the same person. Like, who are we? We're not kidding anyone. What I love is the fact that we do get to reconnect with each other in a slightly more human way. Right? I've seen the dress code overall really, slide off. Like, it's casual Friday every day now. God knows what day it is anyway. So we're all just guessing it's Friday. But I think that humanness is a really important piece. And I'll tell you, when it comes to the relationship with your client, it is about bonding, and humans bond. We make relationships with people, not with brands or organizations, but with the experience we get through people over time. And so keeping that central, being true and honest to who you are and who your organization is, I think those are key things in that.
Yeah, and there's the old saying, nothing new under the sun. There's these foundational truths that are true, and they've been true since kind of the dawn of time. There are some of those even when it comes to business. Reading Amanda's comments, and then even Christine's follow-up comment around that, right away made me think again of many of you are familiar with Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He talks in there about the circle of concern, the circle of influence. And often when I'm having conversations, with business owners, with leaders right now, they are often, we fall into the trap of going into the circle of concern, things that are outside of our control. We don't know how consumers are going to respond when the doors open. Anybody who says they know, is lying. We don't know. We can assume some things. We anticipate certain behaviors, but because we haven't been through this before, we haven't been in an environment where the entire world shuts down. And so what comes out of what we can do is figure out what's within our control, what's within our influence, and put our energy and our time into that. And even just that simple truth, and it's not a new truth. Again, it goes back to, even before Covey. Covey didn't originate those truths either. The notion of being able to say, okay, there are a lot of unknowns during this season, and as we begin to reopen and do all the stuff, rethinking our business is around, again, if I could, bottom line of it is rethinking the things that are within our control. And how do we prepare as best as we can for the things that are not, and try to be able to understand that and figure that out. And I think so. Those are such good points that are being made in the comments. I think they fit in well here. Trev, we just got about 2 minutes left, but just one comment around this. We had a call, one of our community calls, and certainly want to just extend that invitation to just quickly say this. I think the Ottawa Board of Trade calls, these are phenomenal. I think they're great that they're doing this. I applaud you for doing it. Would certainly invite, if you're interested in jumping in on our calls as an additional one. If 2 a week isn't enough and you want to jump in onto some others, we certainly will invite you to do that. We'll have our information out later. You just send me an email and I'll make sure that you get the notifications and get to know when we're doing these calls. We had a call where we had a crisis management, an individual, and you could probably give his title. He made a statement. In fact, I put a sticky on my monitor to keep this as a reminder to me, where he said, he talked about fighting fires. And he said, even in the middle of fighting a fire, you have to be thinking about recovery.
Yeah.
And we talked about how to listen to our website about, 3 stages: response, resilience, recovery, resilience. Just talk about that kind of that notion. Maybe unpack that just real quickly in our limited time.
Yeah, absolutely. If you think about the whole thing as if there's like an explosion and a fire, and our only question is, will this fire ever go out? The explosion has gone off. That's the response phase. So you have rush trucks and you get the initial response in there. And we've all done that in our own organizations. We've gone, oh my God, this has happened. What do I need to do? I need to cut some of these things. I need to do those things. I need to communicate this way, all of that. Organizations, and this is true in emergency management as a principle overall, the faster a community starts focusing on the recovery activities, the faster its recovery is, and the stronger it is. So if all of your resources just go into response, then when the fire is out, or it's contained, and you look and say, okay, what do we do next? Everything's done. Everyone's spent. They got no energy. They got no resources. You've got to think about both at the same time. So we look at it in terms of response, recovery, and resilience. The challenge in this situation is recovery is a return to normal. But there's no return to normal here. A lot of the things that we would go back to do that would be normal we can't go back to the office. We can't go back to the building. We can't go back to our normal way of doing things. This is where we actually have to reinvent a bunch of our activities and our systems and processes to say, we're actually not going back, we're going forward. And how we go forward will determine whether or not we're going to be actually resilient. So resilient is, can you bounce back to your original shape as an organization? Okay, so you say, this is what we looked like before. We took a hit, we're okay. You go, okay, that's great. I think that's the low bar for resilience. I think the real goal for resilience is not, can you bounce back? It's, can you bounce back stronger? Can you grow out of it, right? And this is some of the challenges is the response was unfamiliar. There's no true recovery. And the real test here is resilience. Mm-hmm. To say, what can we do in order to really establish ourselves in a powerful way going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I might just add this, resilience in many cases, for most of you, will mean your business emerges from this eventually stronger, better, faster, the whole bit, right? You will evolve into a better version of yourselves as an organization. For some of you, resilience means a complete reinvention. Some organizations present here and not present here are in industries that are going to go through massive change. Massive change. The principle of creative destruction is at work right now. And some of those industries will not bounce back to what they were before. And yet I know you will, right? This is an opportunity for every individual to figure out what's important to them and ask themselves the question. The universe is in this crisis. There is an opportunity for each of us to answer the questions that perhaps have been nagging at us, but we keep pushing to the back. The world has now created a set of circumstances where the questions are front and center, and we have the opportunity to take hold of them and craft the kind of life that we want for ourselves. So for those of you that are going through those tremendous struggles right now, you're a ground zero business. Our heart is with you. We send you all the encouragement, love, and support we possibly can. But I want you to hear this. You've got this, and regardless of what happens to your business, you will make it, and you will make it out stronger.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. That's such encouraging words for sure. I'm going to hand it back over to Lynn, but let me just summarize with this. Some great questions to be asking yourself when you start to think about rethinking your business is, what are you learning? What are you observing about yourself? What are you learning and what are you observing about your team? What are you learning and what are you observing about your business? And to be able to start to really unpack this. One of the things we do want to make this available. We're going to have our, again, information. You can reach out to us either individually, or you can reach out through our info account, but we'd like to make available to anyone who is a part of the Ottawa Board of Trade a 30-minute call. If you do want to unpack one of those questions, one of those ideas, just kind of explore it a little bit. It's complimentary. It's our a way of being able to continue to serve you, and we would be happy to do that. You see the email addresses there, and if you do want to jump on our calls, you're certainly welcome to do so as well. Just send me an email, and I will make sure that you're included in those calls. Lynn, thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to be able to be part of this. It's been great to just spend some time with the different business owners and the organizational leaders, and I'll hand it back over to you.
Great, thank you. Thank you, guys. I thought that was an amazing webinar. I loved how interactive it was and how everyone was getting really engaged in the conversation. So just before I go into a few upcoming events that we have going on, I want to kind of challenge today's audience. Amanda was the only person who put forth a specific ask or business problem. And I'd love it if everyone would take a minute and either send her a well wishes or your favorite business tip or the title of a book that maybe would help her. I love the fact that so much time was spent today talking about sharing. I think this is a new sharing economy. I love how it seems to have transformed the business community. I have to say that I am so impressed with all of our members that stood up today and said, I want to share something, and they volunteered their time to put together these webinars to help the business community. It's just been amazing. So let's share some stuff with Amanda and see if we can help her get that business back up and running and rebound ready. In the meantime, I do want to talk quickly about some of our other upcoming webinars. And We actually run 3 a week, not 2, because there's a series that we do is called Wellness Wednesdays. Ottawa Board of Trade is absolutely firmly entrenched with the idea that our economic health is completely tied to the physical and mental well-being of our business owners, of our workforce, and our consumers. So the Wednesday Wellness series is run every Wednesday from 1 until 2, and it'll go until the end of June. Tomorrow, we're having Freeform Fitness talk to us about motivation, how to find it, how to keep it going. And we can apply this not just to choosing a new workout routine or changing our lifestyle or our habits, but we can also use this as a way to help us get motivated in the workplace as well. And so going through the rest of the list for the Wednesday Wellnesses, on June the 3rd, we're going to hear Heather Waddell talk about how you can boost your immune system. Very, very important right now, with just making some simple changes to your nutrition and diet. On June the 10th, and this is when I'm looking forward to, this is a must for any team leader or any HR professional. The Royal Ottawa is going to do a webinar on understanding and managing return to work anxiety. That one is going to be huge. In terms of our rebound readiness webinars, on June the 4th, John Haralovich from MMP is going to talk about some of our how to manage debt in a time of uncertainty. I think it's, we all want every business to succeed, but there are businesses that are going to need to know what their options are, and this is a great way to find that out. On June the 9th, the good folks at KPMG are going to talk to us about navigating the new world, and in particular, they're going to focus on cybersecurity, business interruption insurance, and business valuations in a volatile environment. We have a variety of other ones coming up in June, so I encourage you to check out our events calendar and you know, register. They're all free. Everyone is welcome, and we encourage you to take advantage of the information that our members are willing to share with us right now. So I just want to turn it back over to Rhapsody to see if they have any final comments. We have about 3 minutes left, and we do need to respect everybody's time today. So do you have any parting comments?
Parting comments.
Jump in.
Go.
So, you know, maybe I'll echo a little bit of what Eric said last. Sometimes you choose change, and sometimes change chooses you. This is a moment where it's chosen us. And so you may be willing or unwilling. That's up to you. But I think what we do next as leaders, what you do next is really important. It's going to define what happens going forward. Our general belief is, for the most part, people, they have everything they need in them, right? You need to rediscover. You need to uncover. Sometimes we all have little skill gap areas. Yep, you fill those in. You learn stuff. That's no problem. But I think really embracing the fact that this is the situation. You can fight it. You can complain about it. You can blame it. You can point fingers. You can focus on other stuff. You can do all that stuff. But it won't change the fact that this stuff is changing. And so there's an element here to say, don't fight it. It is what it is. Let's embrace it. Keep yourself supported with the people you need around you, whoever that's going to be. I think that's absolutely critical. Yeah. And stay focused on what you can control. Here's the thing. For some, their businesses are not going to make it, right? That does not diminish the leader one bit, not one bit, right? This is the truth. This is, all right, right back to the beginning, Schumpeter's message, things are born, things die, new stuff grows. If you want to stay so held on to the past, if it dies, if you're so attached to it, that can do a lot of personal damage as a leader. Recognize that your leadership continues regardless of whether or not that organization is there. You'll apply it to whatever situation or context that you're in. So I would hold on to that really tightly. None of this, if your business doesn't succeed, you haven't failed.
That's right.
Right? It means you're not done.
Yeah. Yeah. It's time for courageous leadership like never before, and you've got it in you. Yeah. You've got it in you.
Yeah, so true. Thanks again, folks. Lynn, I appreciate again the time, giving us the opportunity. We're right up on the call. We are committed to making sure we end on time.
Awesome. You guys did an amazing job. So we should have the webinar posted on our website within about 48 hours or so. As soon as we do, we'll send you out a little notification and the link so you can find it again. I encourage you to rewatch it or to share it. I think this has been a brilliant webinar, and I'm really grateful to everybody at Rhapsody for your engaging conversation this morning. So have a great afternoon, everyone, and try and stay out of that hot, hot sun.
Thanks,
Thank you
everyone.
all.